everyone, it's Carolyn here to share another channeled message. So today what we're going to talk about is an add-on to some of the things I've already talked about with respect to those who are starting to awaken. I did a video recently on this and how you can identify and help them and assist them. But there's more information that has come in recently to me on how some of those who are starting to awaken are moving through differently in this awakening journey. I'm seeing it in my own journey, and I want to share it with you because it's different than what the first wavers have been through. Doesn't mean it's everybody, but it means a lot of them may be experiencing this different way of going through the awakening. And I'm going to talk about that first. So, for those of you who have been doing this journey for a while, the first wavers as such, right? This is an opportunity for you to kind of get a different awareness of what the awakening journey might look like for people as they're moving forward. It's not going to necessarily look like ours did, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that's not going to happen also for other people, but I do want to add this into the mix for you. And then what I'm going to do is, since we have so many new people awakening, I'm going to talk about some of these changes and shifts that we can see in ourselves as we go through this ascension, a spiritual awakening journey. I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of blocks of changes. We're going to talk about belief changes. We're going to talk about physical changes. We're going to talk about relationship changes, and then also habit changes. And within that, I'm sure I will channel some information for you. So I'm Carolyn. I'm a channel. I'm a distance energy healer, and I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. And I offer these channels for you for your awakening and ascension journey support. Often I will have a light keeper channel for you. They're a group of angelic beings that I channel. Typically, in most of my videos today, we're not going to have that, but they're always here, so I'm sure we'll get some channeled information. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I want to do is I really want to address, for those of you who've been going through this journey of awakening and ascension for quite some time, what those of us as first wavers might start seeing. And I'm going to start with a metaphor that they give me all the time. Those of us who are first as such, and you can argue, what does first even mean, right? But there is this large wave of those who are awakening and going through this ascension journey. And you kind of know if you're one of them because you've been doing this for a while, all right? We've paved the way. The biggest metaphor they give me is of the jungle being macheted down by those of us who are actually been doing this for a while. So there's this jungle of this veil that has been put over humankind for eons, and we are hacking through it. So we go first, and we're just whacking through this, and then what happens is, and we're going to talk about this clearer path for the others coming behind, a smoother journey. It's almost like we've had to suck it up, they just said. Oh my gosh. Suck it up. Suck it up for the rest of them. The rest of the collective. Because remember, everything we do matters to those coming along the way in the journey. It matters to the collective. And there are many of us who have raised our hands before this incarnation to say, okay, we're going to do this first. I'm going to go first. I'm going to be one of the first wavers to open up the gateway, to create the pathway, to be the first wave in the series of waves in the sea coming into the beach. Okay, so we've had a lot of metaphors with respect to what it means to be a first wave awakening person. Okay, now there's not necessarily a delineation, but you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who have been doing this for a while, you understand that there's a group of people collectively worldwide that have been experiencing the spiritual awakening journey as a larger group collective for some time now. And what we've done is we've opened up that pathway for others to come and not have to go through the extreme difficulties or even awareness that we're going through awakening. It just is. It just starts to become how they live. That's the difference, okay? So one of the major differences I'm seeing in my journey with others is that there is not this, oh, this is the way I used to live, and then conscious awareness of, oh, I'm shifting and changing to this way, and that was the 3D way, human way, constructs, all of that, and this is my new way of being. They just actually are kind of there. And again, they'll kind of look at you a little bit cross-eyed, possibly, when you talk about these things. But more importantly, and most likely, they will just go, I know, or yeah, that makes sense, or and then they just go along their journey. But they don't understand they're going through awakening. They just are. It just is. And I know this is very hard to describe, but I will bet you, as you start traveling your journey, particularly in this next year, you're going to start seeing people that fit into this new, I'll just say, kind of paradigm, or this new way of moving through the journey. Whereas we were really conscious of every single thing that happened to us, and we talk about it in videos, we talk about it in comments. We know this, and then we know we're transitioning into that. Well, this is the hacking down. This is the paving the way, helping the collective understand, because everything you understand for yourself assists others in their understanding. And what's happening now is because we've created this vibration of understanding and knowing as this first wave group, energetically, we've created, okay, they just said, okay, they're saying, okay, they're talking about a vortex of energy. Oh, they said that lifts others up. Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because I've been saying this. That lifts others up. And they use a lot of metaphors for this. So what we've done is we've come in, we've done that work that's, we can consciously talk about every single thing. And we see the path. We see every single, yellow brick in the yellow brick road, right? Whereas those coming in, they're just kind of walking the path and they're doing their thing. And it's not this big conscious, it was this and now it's this and I'm transitioning to that. It just is. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to give you a little bit of detail on the characteristics that you might see with respect to a lot of people coming into this awakening journey and how it's going to be different than yours. Now, many of us are going to experience this, and it's not everybody going to experience this, but with a relationship with another person. Okay? If you're close to somebody else or you're living with somebody else, and all of a sudden, you've been going through this journey for some time, and you've been the only one, and they've not fully understood you, but now you're starting to see how they're starting to shift and change. Well, guess what? Because of the work that you've done, they very likely are going to start moving through this awakening journey. They're going to experience things, but again, they're not necessarily going to have the profound experience of conscious awareness of every step of the way. It's just going to shift and change. It will just be, they are saying. It just is. And I know that's hard for us to understand, but it just becomes a natural part of where they're living in the vibration we're in, because it all has to do with the move to that timeline that we've made as a collective, that new vibration. And this is all, a lot of this in December has happened, okay? We had the eclipse energies and we have the solstice energies. That's what they're telling me now, is that this is the shift and the change. Okay, they're just saying making for an easier pathway for those coming. Okay, they're saying it doesn't mean that they're not going to have their own things that they're going to work on and deal with, but it's not this. Okay, they're talking about, it's not this detailed explanation and understanding. They're just going to move through. Okay, they're showing now okay. They're showing the difference between going through a revolving door and pushing your own door open. So they're trying to give us some metaphors to better understand this, because it can be kind of hard to understand. So the revolving door just kind of, moves along, and oh, I know why they're giving that, because there's another person typically in front of you pushing the door. So that's the idea, is we've created that momentum. Momentum, that's what they just said, momentum, rather than pushing our own door open, okay? So we've created that momentum for them to come forward, and now they're starting to just flow through this more easily and more readily. Doesn't mean they're not doing their work, but as they're doing their work, they're probably not going to be as able to articulate what's going on. And as you have done your part of your journey and you continue to grow, you are like the flotation device for them. And this is what they show me, okay? So many people are raising their hand now, up from the water, like, save me, right? With all the things going on in their journey. But what happens is then we come along in whatever way that means. It doesn't mean we go and say, oh, I will help you. It just starts happening. Now the visual they've given me in the last few weeks is, it's not the hand up in the water anymore. We're the flotation device. And now what we've got is we've got those who are awakening on the flotation device, us. That's the momentum we've created. That's the vibration we've created to allow them to come through their journey in a smoother fashion. So, okay, Okay, I want to give a boat metaphor. We'll see where this is going. Okay. Okay, so they're using water, flotation device. Okay, so they said it's the difference between being the flotation device and the one on the flotation device. Okay, they said envision a boat. You're on a boat on water. The boat is the flotation device. You are a passenger on the boat. As a passenger on the boat, you don't think about the inner workings of the boat, how the boat's keeping you afloat, how the mechanics work, the detail behind being able to float on the water. You just are. Oh my gosh, that's such a good metaphor. That is such a good metaphor. You just are. You're just on the boat taking the nice journey. Doesn't mean you're not going to have some bumpy waves that come along. But you're not all hung up about the mechanics and the gears and the how's the boat stay afloat. Whereas we were, right? We were in our journey. So we've paved the way vibrationally, okay? So remember, it's not just an individual journey. We're doing this for the collective. Everything we're doing is for the collective. As we work on ourselves, we assist the others coming our way. So remember the boat and the passenger. That is such a good metaphor. So I'm going to give you some pieces here to take away with respect to that. Then I'm going to jump into signs and symptoms of going through the awakening, which I think anybody who still is a first waver, you could stick around and listen to that because I think it's helpful. I'm chunking them out into different categories, and yet at the same time, it's also fantastic for people who are just going through their journey. So you might want to reference this video for people you know going through awakening. Now, of course, I'm not listing everything under the sun. I'm listing a lot of things that came to me to list, but also that I've been through, and I'll try to give you some examples. But let's step back a bit and talk about the group coming behind us now, all right, in the new energy we've created by the mere fact that we have going through our journey. Okay, I talked about the fact that you may have a relationship with somebody where this happens, okay? You have started doing the processing for them. You may also be, depending on your relationship, you might be processing past lives that the two of you have lived together that need some clearing. They're not going to be consciously aware of this necessarily, although things may come up in their journey. But the thing is, you may collapse those lives that you two have led together, and you may experience and transmute for them. Okay? That's a thing. That is a thing, depending on the closeness of that relationship. Those relationships that are super soul connected, where you've traveled many journeys together. If somebody new, I have so many chills on this. If somebody is starting their awakening journey now in this new energy coming into 2021, oh my gosh, I have so many chills. You're offering to them where you've been energetically. And so you know how to process these things, all right? So you may have signed up prior to your incarnation to transmute, to process these past lives. Now, that you shared together. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have parts of those past lives you've had together that you need to process, because remember how multi-layered this journey is. But what you're going to do is you're going to help ease them through to the next stage of their journey. They're probably not going to say to you, yeah, these past lives that we have together, I'm processing blah, 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 blah. Although they may come up with an emotion, something within your relationship that you're seeing that ties to those past lives. Okay, now that means obviously that you understand some of your past lives, and I realize not everybody does. But just know that even if you don't know these past lives, you may be processing for your partner, your significant other, a family member, a close friend, somebody you spend a lot of time with that you're close to. You may be surprised. I'm just telling you that is really something that is occurring now. And again, as I've said, most of these things here that I talked to you about, I'm having happen or I've had happen. Okay, so the next thing that this new group of awakening people may display is that they're not consciously aware they're waking up. They just are. It just is. It is so hard to describe. I know I talked about that earlier, but they also will probably maybe get these signs and messages, like the numbers, and we can talk all about that later, because that's still there. But it's almost like it transcends the need to know, they just said. Okay, transcends the need to know. Okay, now they're showing children's building blocks, A, B, C, D. You don't have to build the foundation. You don't have to build on top of each other. The foundation's been built by us. Does that make sense? Okay. So they're not necessarily going to have all of that. It just will be, and it is. So keep that in mind. It may seem like, it's just like they said, they've transcended this. They've transcended the need to know. Oh, because we're more, okay. So think about back in the mystical magical days. I'm bringing in Avalon. So Avalon was real and true. And basically all of the magic was happening then, and that's just how they lived. This is the beginning of where we're headed, okay? Bringing that back. But the point is this is the kind of energy we're talking about, where it just is, and they just are. And that's how they live. They aren't consciously going through this detailed journey of waking up. They just are. Okay? I know I'm going to repeat myself a lot here, but it's very important to try to understand this, because you're going to see it and it's going to feel like at first, oh, they don't really know what's going on and I'll need to explain it to them, or we'll get all the detail here later as they start going through their rocky times. Not necessarily. They're just going to go through it. So I hope that makes sense, because it's really hard to put into words. Okay, the other one this is the third one, and this kind of ties to the second one, it's a more natural part of this new group's journey. And it's not a major awareness of it having been separate, if that makes sense. And remember, this is all ages of people, okay? This is all ages, because the energy we've created out of this journey to the ascension that they then get to float on, okay? Does that make sense? So again, it's more natural as a part of their journey and not a major awareness that this is separate from how to live. Fourth, there also, and I alluded to this earlier, there's also a potential for less difficulty in the journey. Now, they have their stuff they have to learn too, all right? And this doesn't mean that everybody's going to follow this path, but I'm very much seeing a pattern that there's a group like this, okay? A lot more are going to go through the process like this. So there's potential for less difficulty in their journey, because guess what? You're the boat and they're the passenger. Still, their lessons come, but they're going to likely transcend past them more easily and not even be aware, as I've said, that they're in this awakening journey. It just is. It just is how life is going to be from now on as we move through wave upon wave upon wave of those who are awakening. And so lastly, because you're the flotation device, and honestly, this is the best metaphor, the boat that they're traveling in, and you're holding them up because of the work you've done, and you're not drowning. Now, sometimes it can feel like it because you've got a lot that you've agreed that you're going to kind of help and transmute. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to do that. Every first waver, you may just notice some of these people coming your way and this happening, but the fact that you've been through this is assisting anybody you run into. But they are going to transcend likely more easily the things I'm now going to mention in signs and symptoms of the awakening journey, okay? And so some of these are going to shift and change. We'll see if we get any information on this as I mention the signs and symptoms in the categories that I've placed them in, to see if there's something new that comes through for this new group. Okay, so that should help you kind of understand what this next wave is very likely going to look like, either in big pockets or in well, they're not saying totality. Okay, it's a very much, there's a significant group of people that will be going through it like this. All right? Okay, so we're going to go through some signs and symptoms of the awakening journey. So stick with me, even you first wavers, those of you who've been doing this a long time. So, because you never know what comes through on this. All right. Oh, and I would ask you too, just do share this with people you think might be going through the awakening, or that are, okay? Because obviously, like I've said before, you don't want to talk too much about it because they'll look at you like, what? So the first category I'm using are belief changes. Okay, this is where, as we start going through the awakening journey, you're going to start questioning your beliefs. People are going to start looking at the world constructs, systems, religion, global and personal, all of the belief structures that we've created for ourselves. Because basically, when we're born, we're a clean slate, right? But then all this stuff gets done to us and we suck all of it in, right? And then we get defined by our outside world, and that's who we become. Well, as we start going through our life journey and become more aware that I'm just a construct, that society or my culture or the world has created. And so as we go through that awakening journey in the beginning stages, we start questioning the things that have built us, that have built our beliefs. That can be religion, that can be politics, that can be familial, cultural situations that you grew up in. They no longer serve us. We start questioning. We start wondering. That's also where conspiracy theories come in. But remember, we've always said don't get stuck in them. Just touch on them and come out and know that what we see isn't always real and true. It's the upside down. That goes on and on, right? We've talked about that before. But the point is we start questioning our beliefs, our world constructs, our systems, and then we start going inside and realizing who we really are. What do we really understand about ourselves? And we shed all that and we let it go. So what this belief change category includes is, even though this is a deep dive into ourself, we first have to look outside ourselves and say, wow, what is all this? These were building blocks of me in the past, that I'm not feeling it anymore. So you do look outside yourself in this early journey of awakening to learn, to understand what you do believe. So you're going to spend a lot of time studying, learning typically, searching mysteries of the world. Actions may change in your own journey and what you're involved in as a result of that. I went through, this is so interesting, I went through about 8 years of massive political involvement and activism involvement in the United States. So, and that was so not me before. But I had to do the deep dive. I didn't know this was part of my awakening journey because I had to go through a dark night of the soul in order to even understand I was awakening. But the point in this is I had to understand what politics even was, what I believed, what I understood. And then honestly, I just dropped all of it. I still stay in touch, but the point is I had to understand what was going on. So I did that by getting deeply involved, and that's going to happen too. You may pick things that you go get deeply involved in for a period of time, and what it's about is understanding what's going on for yourself. You're not going to necessarily be consciously aware of this. It just is one of the signs and symptoms. You will change your actions and what you're involved in. You're studying, you're learning, you're searching the mysteries of the world. Another thing that starts to happen with your belief changes as you start going through this awakening journey, and honestly, this is a big part of the journey, is you're going to look at these things, these constructs and beliefs, many that have put fear in us to keep us in our place for eons. Your fear is going to start to dissipate. Because what you're doing is you're learning about this, and then you're starting to understand what do you truly believe. And that's going to start getting stripped away. And so fear starts to dissipate. Now, it may pop its head in for a while, but guess what? You're going to realize these are all belief systems that humans have created and created fear around them. And then guess what you've done? You've internalized that. So you're going to start stripping away the fear out of your life as a result of this part of the process. And strong emotion becomes less as well around all of this. You may get whipped up in the beginning because you're learning about all this, but pretty soon, over this journey, you're going to go, okay, now I understand. I know where this fits for me or where it doesn't. I went through a 6-year period. It was 2004 at least, probably later, until about 2012, 2010, and that's actually longer than 6 years, where this is what I did all the time. I was learning, and I was understanding that what I had allowed inside myself, this wasn't conscious, remember, what I had allowed inside myself to create who I was and what I believed was all a result of external influences that humans have created. But what about what I really believed deep inside? Okay, so that wasn't conscious for me, it was just happening, all right? So needless to say, as you start going through this part of the journey, guess what? The way you had your life set up kind of no longer works. You start taking the things you've learned and realizing, wow, that is not who I am anymore. And a great example for me was I love studying religions. And it's a very much a past life journey for me as well. A lot of my past lives have to do with religion in general. But the point in this is, I obviously didn't know that at the time, but one of the things that broke down for me was I had very much been studying Islam, which I so enjoyed, and that was about a 10-year process. and the beauty behind it organically, right? Well, all of a sudden realized I don't need any religion. I liked some of the philosophies and some of the beauty from many of the ones I had studied, and I never was sunk into any one faith. And I saw the beauty in all of them that I looked at. And so what I realized suddenly is I'm going to change. This is the way I'm going to change. I'm not going to have a faith that I have. I'm going to know that, I moved into that journey of knowing we're all one, and essentially took pieces of things that I enjoyed. And so I changed the way my life was set up, with just in particular with the religious aspect of that. So things start breaking down in that sense, and you start rebuilding from the inside out. You start building from the inside out, the new you. Okay, so now what they're showing me, okay, oh gosh, this is beautiful. They said, you flower from the inside. Oh, okay. All right. Let me back up. They're going to start here. They're showing the seed of growing something new inside of you. They're showing this inside of you, okay? And then they're showing it growing into this flower. But the flower blooms inside of you. Okay, the flower blooms inside of you. Oh, and now they're saying, oh, for all to smell the perfume of. Oh, okay. So the flower is within you, and the perfume is what you offer as you bloom after rebuilding what you believe and understand for your journey. And that's what you offer to others. And honestly, that's like your vibration, right? Oh my gosh, that is such a cool metaphor. So, okay. Anyway, I can get kind of wrapped up in those metaphors. I just love them so much. Okay, so the way you have your life set up no longer works. You're creating that new foundation, that new flower to bloom that you get to offer to others. But that flower inside of you is who you are, and your beliefs and your understandings and your values. And now you've grown that from the inside out versus the outside in, which is what we've done our entire life, most of us. Okay, so they just said it's an inside job. Okay, so we manifest from the inside out, not the outside in, who we are going to be. So that's the first category, belief changes and how that will transpire and what you may start seeing. Okay, so now we have the physical changes. Oh my gosh, we've all been there, haven't we? Those of us who've been doing this for a while, but they're all over the map, and I'm going to hit on some of them that maybe you'll be consciously aware of. Others, they're just going to happen and you're not going to understand why. One thing I will say is many people come into their incarnations and have a lot of physical issues, a lot of emotional situations going on, a lot of struggles with illnesses and physicality. Okay, they just said in this incarnation journey. Oh, okay, this is because we've brought a lot into clear through our bodies. We have karmic debt we're clearing out too, and lots of times we'll pay that back by having physical situations. Now, that's all understanding your past lives. You don't need to worry about that. Just know that what can happen, and I do this in my work, I help you understand your past lives and maybe where some of this comes from. But the point in this is just knowing that what you may be experiencing is very likely coming from a past life. All right. And so if you can sit with that and accept that and understand that, just know that this is something a lot of people have brought into their journey. Now, this can be over a lifetime or part of a lifetime, or it can be like that quick. Literally, you're clearing something from a past life. So I think I've shared this before, and I'm going to give this as an example of clearing a past life. Now, remember, it can be all over the map, from you've got physical issues you've been dealing with for a lifetime or a good part of a lifetime, or it's just happening now and it clears. Weird little pains. So let me give you some examples from my journey, and they're going to sound maybe a little trippy, but I know my past lives. Well, not all of them, but significant ones for this incarnation's journey, right? And I also know as they show themselves for clearing what's happening, okay? So I have a life from Toledo, Spain. I was in the Inquisition. I was part of the Jewish mystic sect and a leader, and I was used as an example in the Inquisition. You know, the whole horribleness. Honestly, what they've told me, it's not even in the records accurately as to how many people suffered and were put to death. I was one of those that was put to death. There's a whole long story about me being connected to Toledo, Spain in this life. But point is I was almost to the point of drawn and quartered. I also had, there were some physical situations that occurred that were horrific and led to my demise, essentially. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but point is I had a period of time over about 4 days where one time when I was walking down the hallway, I literally had my shoulder go out of my socket at the same time my hip. It was like, and you'll think, well, how'd you even stand up? I have no idea. Like my shoulder came out of its socket and then instantly my hip did the same thing. But as fast as that happened, when I was about ready to fall, it came back. What was happening at that point in time, okay, I have so many chills, is my physical body had decided to process that torture of that past life. Now, I had some other physical issues happen to me, very personal physical issues happened to me. I was a female in that lifetime, so you can only imagine, as they started to make an example of me. That happened with me physically in this lifetime that I had to endure, and it was so painful. All of that was so painful. And the thing is, it happened over a 4-day period where this would happen kind of over and over again. But I knew what it was. That didn't make it any easier, right? You're going to very likely clear past lives that you have no idea about. You're going to have strange things happen to your body because we've come in to make ourselves lighter and to clear the pathway, all right? To clear our own pathway. Because remember what they always say, DNA is the library of you. You carry all of your cellular memories with you in your DNA. And we have chosen certain ones to exude and to clear in this lifetime, okay? So that's one of the things that you very likely will notice, but maybe not even be able to identify, but hang in there, okay? Because oftentimes these will come and go faster than you can even imagine. Okay, so here's another one. Weight fluctuations, and they can be dramatic. Literally, and I know this primarily, I don't know about men. It would be interesting to hear from some of you men. Women, weight gain, massive amount of weight gain, massive amount. However, there's a reason for that. That is because we are having cellular changes happen as we move from what they have always said is to a crystalline state. Now, that doesn't mean we're turning into a selenite wand. We're going to turn into a different kind of cellular structure that is able to hold more light and energy. We're moving from, I guess, a carbon state. Is that right? Okay, yeah. Okay, there's some more carbon base. Oh, to a light-filled state. Okay. I guess the crystalline state allows that. I don't know. I'm just repeating what they say. So needless to say, weight fluctuations can be a painful part of the process. It's not fun. Needless to say, it can also be the opposite. Suddenly, you're done with that part of the process. You don't need to have that weight anymore, and it flies off of you. I'd heard this would be part of the journey, that I would suddenly lose the weight that I had gained. And I thought, oh, I can't wait for that day, because it was like 3 years. Oh yeah, it happened in 2 months. It happened in 2 months. And now I have no trouble keeping weight off. So it's real interesting. The cells changed as they needed to for that period of time, and then the weight came off. But it's an important part of the process because it's protective. Keep that in mind. Okay, this is the physical changes category. If I didn't say that, we've talked about the belief changes. This is physical changes. Some of these are rather obvious, but I'm going to list them. Ringing in the ears. Your sensitivity is super heightened in general with your senses. Smell is a big one. Sometimes you can't handle smells. I cannot be in like department stores with perfume counters anymore. Oh, I just feel like I'm going to die. I mean, it's awful. So hearing is also more sensitive. I notice primarily smelling and hearing. Early on in my journey, my seeing was heightened even more with colors and everything. That kind of went away, but now the seeing is more the intuitive third eye seeing. But the point is the physicality of it, ringing in the ears, sensitivity, heightened, smelling, hearing, and that just kind of stays with you. Ringing in the ears, that stays with you pretty much for good. Don't worry about it. People tell you have tinnitus. Okay, so you do. There's really nothing you can do. It is the way it is. It's a frequency shift and change, and you're just going to get used to it, and you're going to live with it. That's been my experience. All right, you may start seeing beyond the veil, okay? Well, you probably will. You'll start seeing numbers and synchronicities. Those are the very common ones. Patterns of things that you see that tell a story for you. Numbers that come your way from your angels and your guides, and they're just aware. They're in your field of vision now, and they weren't before, and they stand out, and you don't miss them. That's your higher self making sure you see that, because that's support. That's helping you along your journey. That's giving you signs and messages, all right? That's starting to see beyond the veil. A lot of people say to me, I don't have any intuitive gifts. And I said, do you see numbers? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you didn't before, right? So these things do shift and change to different degrees. So to me, and what I've been told, that's starting to see beyond the veil. That will continue to grow if you do, in fact, continue to cultivate that. All right, your body is going to start wanting other things. Remember, your body is a consciousness. Your body is a consciousness. It will speak to, you can talk to it, it will respond. It will respond. It's going to start, very likely, wanting more water, but also Epsom salts. I never took a bath for years. I was always a shower person. Oh no, baths, baths, baths. I've mentioned this before. Epsom salts too, okay? So Epsom salts are a good salt to use, just so you know. Be aware of Himalayan salts because you don't want to use those too much. It's a different kind of salt. Just FYI. I had an experience with that wasn't pleasant. Okay, so you're going to do also, within the physical changes section, you're going to start feeling more than thinking. In other words, making your decisions and moving through your day-to-day more from your heart space, more from your feeling space, more from your divine feminine space, all right? More from that area than the thinking part, okay? So there's a fine line where you meld those two together, but it's about the gut knowing. It's about the feeling rather than the overthinking that we so often do. You're coming from the heart, not the mind. That's a very hard one to actually articulate how that process happens. It just happens as you move through your journey. I do believe, however, at least for myself, and I've seen with many others, that's a struggle that is kind of ongoing through the awakening journey. We have blips of unconditional love and we're like, oh my God, this is where I just want to live all the time in this beautiful space of I love everyone. But it comes and goes. It comes and goes. Our mind, boy, we have really been conditioned. And so it's about letting it flow and letting that higher self continue to grow within you and lead the way. So you'll start feeling more than thinking in making your decisions. You're going to get dizzy, very possibly. You might get vertigo. Just know that. Hopefully it doesn't last too long, but I've had 2 whole days where I was full of dizziness, and it was a result of shifts and changes in the energies for me. However, it also had to do with my own journey. So there are things you can do to help yourself there. Make sure to drink a lot of water. Self-care. The foundation of all of what I'm talking about today, self-care is critical. They talk about this all the time. I'm not going to go into that today. I've got self-care videos out there, but self-care is kind of common sense, all right? But you really want to drink a lot of water too, okay? Because you're flushing a lot out. You're processing a lot. Here's another thing. Remember I talked earlier about illnesses and odd things that pop up? Well, guess what? Just like them popping up, things you've had for quite a long time, they can actually start to dissipate because you're moving into a different vibration. And depending on what the situation is that you're dealing with, it can't exist in the higher vibrations. Remember, everything's energy. So think of it like that. Everything's energy. So I've seen a lot of people transcend past their illnesses that they have. They start to dissipate. So those are some of the things that I wanted to list out for physical changes that can actually happen as you start going through your awakening journey. There are many more. Those are some of the key ones. All right, we've got 2 more categories: relationship changes to others and yourself. So the first one is that new people will come your way, often spontaneously out of the blue. You can't even imagine how you could ever have met them in the circumstances you're in, particularly now during the whole situation with the virus. We're leading a much more sheltered life right now. And so needless to say, you're still going to have it possible. It's happened to me in the most unlikely circumstances when, in fact, I am probably one of the most cloistered people there is because I work from my home, I live alone, and I have a set of friends and family that are very small. That's just how I choose to live, right? Now, with the virus, that's made it even more severe that way. And I've realized how much more I really need people. But the point is I've had people come my way spontaneously that have changed my journey. This will happen as well. You don't have to go looking for them. Your higher self is going to lead them to you, or you're going to get led to them. And this is an important part of our journey. Oftentimes these people are online as well. I've met some of my closest soul family through online relationships, through just chance meetings. So just know it will happen. Don't put heavy energy out there in searching for them. You're going to also very likely part ways with others, family and friends included, even those you may have had lifelong with, we're here for certain periods of time. As I've said in the video I recently did on contracts, okay, so you might want to listen to that as well. These shift and change as our vibration shifts and change. So remember, it's all energetic. As we shift to a higher frequency, higher vibration, because of the work we've done in this journey we're on, and they may stay here, they're always shifting and changing too, but it's just not a match anymore, all right? What served you earlier on and the reason they were in your journey no longer serves you or them, okay? So things start kind of crumbling as that happens. Just know that's natural. And yes, there's some grieving to that. There can be, but just know it does and can happen. All right. You're also going to be reaching inside yourself rather than outside for definition of who you are. Okay, that also has to go to the beliefs that we talked about. You're really digging inside deep. This is an inner journey to turn into the flower that you then offer the perfume to others, as they said earlier. Additionally, part of relationship changes to yourself and to others is that you become less me-focused and you're more global collective focused. Well, now you may say, well, how can that be when you just got done saying it's an inner journey, it's an inner job? Well, it is, but what you're taking is you're understanding that we're all one, and that part of that oneness is within you. And then what you're doing is you see it as a collective journey. You see it as a global journey. You see us all as one, that you're a spark of that divine light that's in everybody else. But you're journeying in to understand that inside for yourself, okay? But you ultimately become less me, materialism, 3D, self-centered, focused, and more globally focused. You also will very likely be drawn to spiritual support from your angels and your guides. Your higher self will also start communicating with you ultimately. Don't get hung up about how that's going to happen, but you're going to start noticing that there is likely a difference for you. You're drawn to wanting to communicate with him. That's great. And just start that process. I always say start through meditation. That's key to this journey. As they always say, don't build your house on the foundation of sand. Build it on something solid, and that's meditation. And then another part that is actually kind of part of the other piece of relationship changes to others and self is this deep, deep dive into self-awareness. Deep dive. And sometimes you have to get cracked open wide with the dark night of the soul, as I've talked in previous videos, to be able to come into that great self-awareness. All right? Just know that may happen to you. You may be forced to go there because guess what? It's been tried before to get you there and it hasn't happened, or you chose to just have the big bang and make it happen all at once. But understand, you may be forced into your own deep self-awareness by a traumatic situation that can occur, and that is what we call in the kind of the spiritual community a dark night of the soul. Again, I have videos on that as well. But that's a start of a relationship change to others and yourself. All right, the last category, and then we're done. So hang in there with me. Habit changes. All right, we have so many habit changes happen. First of all, you're likely going to want a lot of quiet time, alone time, and I know that can be hard if you live with others, but also meditation. You'll be drawn into that inner awareness of who you are in that calm space of quietness. And again, what they talked about with meditation, that really is a foundation. For me, my entire life, I didn't even know what meditation was. I never even imagined doing it. I had a blip on the screen of about a year's worth of meditating regularly before. It was during my early, unconsciously conscious awakening journey that I've talked about before, where I was meditating for a year. Then I stopped, all right? But the minute I went through my dark night of soul, suddenly my higher self said, you're going to meditate. I just started obsessively meditating. It's been part of my journey ever since. So you're going to likely want to start to do that. Quiet time, alone time, building that foundation. Your higher self will guide you there. Things you used to do are no longer interesting. You're going to change those habits. Things you used to do are no longer interesting, or they don't hold the significance for you. So I'm going to use this as an example. We can often define ourselves by some of the things we're involved in, all right, whether it be our job or whatever. I define myself as a tennis player. Check that out, I am a tennis player. It was who I was all my childhood. We played competitively for 10 years. I was always a tennis player. Well, I picked it up about a dozen years ago, and I again was doing this. That's who I am. That's who I am. What would I do if that was stripped away? That's who I am. That's who I am. Well, guess what? I have realized because of a big injury I had this year, a 2-month injury with my knee. Talk about smack me down and make me realize that's not what defines you. I mean, I knew that, but I was really struggling with letting the I am a tennis player go. I still play, but guess what? Now I'm not as obsessed. I was so obsessed when I picked it up again. That's who I thought I was. That's who I thought I was as a child. That's who I thought I was later on in my adulthood, because before that I had then defined myself as my career. I defined myself in that gap time from tennis to tennis later in my years to who I was in work. Well, I quit my job. That quickly dissipated. I realized I hadn't really defined myself like that, because I'd always thought, what would happen if I didn't have this work? Who would I be? Who would I be? Starts to break down. Things you used to do are either no longer interesting or don't define you anymore. Because guess what? You don't need defined. You are who you are. The soul of you deep inside. That's who you are. And all these other things around you are things that you have created to define you. And they also become less interesting. Doesn't mean you're not going to do them. You're just not going to be obsessed with defining yourself as that thing. So now I play tennis, I don't know, a couple times a week. I don't play competitively anymore. I just play for fun and to stay in shape. And it feels so good. You're also going to likely desire more time in nature. And I know this can be hard in the winter months, but guess what I'm doing now? I'm taking walks, which I never used to do before. I take long, long walks. I put all my winter gear on and off I go. And I am taking long walks. Oh, you feel so much better when you do this, because guess what? That's where we really belong. Our true nature is to be in nature. You're also going to feel very likely less materialism and this huge desire to clean out your space. So first of all, I don't save a lot of stuff, but I do live in a home of my own over all these years where I have collected things. Guess what I've done the last few days? I've never done this, turned my house upside down. It was obsessive, and I have just gotten rid of so much. I have a car full of stuff to get rid of. I have a humongous recycling bin. I've been to the recycling center twice. I have a garbage bin full. It's all going. It's all going. I mean, all this extraneous stuff I don't need. So again, less materialism, a desire for more space, all right? So you're going to have probably a few cleaning out opportunities over this time. You'll just keep going through these iterations. Your food choices are likely going to shift. Many people move into vegetarianism or veganism. Doesn't mean you have to. You're going to make different choices along the way. Early in my journey, this would be probably about 2004, I learned in the exploration phase of what I believed in and what I saw out in the world community, I started understanding factory farming existed. And here I am in Iowa, of all places. That was the end of eating chicken, beef, and pork for me. That's it. I just switched on a light, and that's how I've been since. So you're all going to find different things where you're going to very likely change your food choices, all right? I also went through a stage where, oh my gosh, I needed protein like nobody's business. All I could do was drink protein drinks. I could not get enough protein over and over again. I thought something was wrong with me. Nope, it was a phase. My body needed that. So your body's going to tell you what you need and what you don't need, all right? And go with it. Sometimes it's just going to be junk food for a while, very likely, okay? You may be drawn to a lot more water. And what I would say to you is try to drink more water during this journey, okay? But I went through a phase where water was an obsessive thing for me. I still drink a lot of water. That's just who I am. But I would go through gallons of water a day. I am not kidding. Another habit change is during this journey, you're going to start doing a lot of reading, or you're going to be online a lot. You're going to study. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. But you're going to research on things that you may never have researched before, much more esoteric things. So what happened with me, how I knew something was changing, I was buying books. I'm a library person. I don't buy books. I bought books. I probably had 30 or 40 books. Bought books over a period of just a couple months in my early journey. Things that you may never have anticipated even being involved in. And I'll give you an example. I knew nothing about this realm before my journey started, which was really, it started in 2001, but then really hyped up starting 2004. Not consciously aware of any of this until 2016, when I had my Dark Night of the Soul. Needless to say, I didn't know what a tarot card was. I had dabbled a couple times with somebody doing a tarot reading. I'm like, I don't even know what it is. What's a tarot card? I don't know what oracle cards. I mean, that's as basic as it got. I didn't know any of this. And suddenly, I'm involved in all of this. I'm searching out all the esoteric things that I'd never been involved in. And it was almost like, and this is another thing you may have happen, is as you're doing this, it's not like, oh, I shouldn't be looking at this. Oh my gosh, wow, I never did. It may just feel like, yep, I'm home. Yep, I get it. Yep, this feels natural. So just don't be surprised by your reactions. But some of us do have to have those constructs and belief systems break down of, oh, that is sinful, evil, dark magic, all that stuff, right? From religion days. Just know that you may have all kinds of feelings around that, but it's a fascinating journey. And lastly, with habit changes, addictive behaviors are addressed. You kind of naturally are no longer interested. Now, this can be all over the map, all right? Some of it continues with you. Others, it just drops away and you have no interest at all. Or you'll pick it back up again, all right? Whatever the addictive behaviors are. Doesn't mean you're an addict. I don't mean that. We all have stuff that we've done or we do that's not great for us, right? And as we start raising in vibration, we start questioning those things. And our body just naturally doesn't want to do some of that anymore. However, keep in mind, this can be one of the biggest struggles there is these, I'll just say, lower frequency habits that we can have, and there are many of them. When they become that addictive kind of situation, they can be a big struggle in this awakening journey. Some people have just like that shifted and changed, but they can pop back in just when you think you have them licked. And we all have something. I'm here to tell you, I know we all have something that borders on that or could be, or that just isn't that great. So know that as you start moving into a higher frequency, your vibration changes, you move through this journey, you're likely going to be shedding addictive behaviors or things that could border on being addictive behavior or just not good for you any longer. So keep that in mind, because that in itself is quite a journey too, and can really be one of the, I would say, probably tougher parts of going through this awakening ascension journey, of being able to shed what no longer serves you in that category. And it's not saying that you'll shed it all together necessarily, but boy, you're going to get pretty close, or you will, is my estimation. But it's a very much it's a longer part of the process of the journey, I have found. Okay. So anyway, needless to say, that's what I've got for you today. So what we've done, remember, we've talked about for you first wavers, kind of what we're going to see with some of these new folks coming through in this next wave. And you're going to wonder, how the heck is this happening? Well, guess what? A lot of it has to do with the work that you've done, and you're just going to kind of watch them on the boat, enjoying their cruise, still going through the bumpy waters on occasion. But guess what? You're the boat and you're the motor, and you're the one that's keeping them afloat by the work that you have done previously. So it's an interesting journey to see this happen with people in your life, because it's happening with me right now in spades. And then what we've talked about are the symptoms and changes that you see as you start moving through the awakening journey. And we broke them into categories: belief changes, physical changes, relationship changes to others and self, and then habit changes. So there are many more, but these are some of the ones that I have had happen to me, and that I know have happened to others, and that have been brought into me to share with you today. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and that you'll share this with others as they go through their awakening journey. So remember, I'm here to help you through your journey as well, whether you're a first waver moving through this still, or you're coming new into your spiritual awakening journey. I offer services through purplerainhealing.com, where I offer spiritual awakening mentoring, one-on-one work with you as you journey through your awakening. And we work together to help you travel this journey, understand it more. And I channel information in all of my services, and I do that in the spiritual awakening mentoring as well. I also offer distance energy healing. Offer two options that you'll see. One, which includes a massive channeled document for you of at least 8 pages of information on your own journey. And then lastly, I've got 3 different channeled sessions. One where Celeste and I work together to do a soul journey session that talks about your origins in the stars and moves you all the way to present day. It gives you a real glimpse of your soul journey. So we would love to work with you, as well as me, in my other services that I offer through Purple Rain Healing. So if you're interested in working with me, visit purplerainhealing.com for more information. And thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video.